Good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on what time zone you are currently in. My name is Charles Morrow, and I'm going to be sharing with you the history of a sport I have come to truly enjoy over the past 10 years. It is a sport played by professionals, amateurs, men, women, and children all over the world. Today I'm going to be talking about the great sport of golf. In one form or other, variant games of present-day golf have been played throughout Europe in the Middle Ages. Scholars have linked it to games played by the Romans, Chinese, Scandinavians, and Scots. The first reference to golf as we know it is associated with the historic town of St. Andrews, Scotland in 1552. Around that time frame, the St. Andrews Society of Golfers was formed to compete in its own annual competition. Stroke play, or the number of hits that you need to get from the tee box to the green, was created in 1759. In 1764, the first 18-hole golf course was created and became the standard of all golf courses that would follow that one. In the early 1500s, the first set of clubs was commissioned by King James IV. A set of clubs at that time consisted of drivers known as long noses, medium-range clubs known as spoons, short-range clubs known as nibligs, and a putting cleek. The golf ball used at this time was called the feathery. It was made of 3 pieces of leather bound around a core filled with a bunch of feathers. The equipment during this time frame was handcrafted by professionals, so it was very expensive, and thus the noble class and the wealthy were the only ones that played the sport, and the common man really didn't get to play it at this time frame. Around the 1800s, we saw a lot of changes in the sport of golf. In 1848, the Reverend Adam Patterson invented the gutta percha ball, or the gutty. The gutty was a solid rubber ball created from the sap of the sapodilla tree. The invention of the gutty and the mass production of machine-crafted clubs permitted the average person to play this sport, which was once limited to the nobles and the wealthy. The Prestwick Golf Club was formed in 1851 in the United Kingdom. Around this time frame, this is notable because the British Open, the first major national championship, was played there. In 1894, the U.S. States Golf Association was established to regulate the game in the United States and Mexico. Basically, they created the rules that the professional golfers played by. In 1900, there were more than 1,000 golf courses in the United States. In this time frame, the United States hosted a majority of the professional competitions and tournaments, but the prestigious games, the games that were notable, were still being played in the United Kingdom. And the gutty ball was replaced by the Haskell in 1903. The Haskell was a composite of solid core, round, with rubber string covered in a thin outer shell. Its basic 3-piece design became the standard for golf balls for the next 90 years, and can even be seen in some of the golf balls used today. Arthur Knight introduced steel-shafted clubs in 1910, although hickory was widely used for another 25 years. Golfers could now hit further and more accurately than ever before. Around the 1900s, we saw even more changes in the game of golf. Professional Golfers Association of America, commonly known as the PGA, was formed in 1916 and initially consisted of a winter calendar. This was expanded to play throughout the year for a total of 22 events in 1944. In the 1930s, there are a lot of different clubs available, and it was real common to see golfers using 20 to 30 clubs in their bags, different styles, different kinds. And in order to limit this and to basically help the caddies from carrying this huge weight, the USGA implemented the 14 club rule that a lot of modern golfers use today and is carried forward. Also around this time frame, the traditional names of the golf clubs, like the long noses and nibligs and spoons and cleeks, were replaced by the numbering system that we use on our golf clubs today. When World War II broke out in 1939, competition in Europe was pretty much decimated, and that was mostly because a lot of the resources that were being used to fabricate the clubs and the golf balls and the equipment that was being used basically got diverted over to the war effort to supply the big push there. A lot of the golfers also got drafted into the service at this time frame. The Americans followed this model when they ended the war in 1942. After the war, most professionals chose to compete exclusively in America because of the sizable monetary awards that were available there. In recognition of this, the R&A, which was the ruling society for the Europeans, increased the prize money for their competitions, which helped bring the players back to Europe. Now we're kind of moving into closer to present-day golf history. In 1951, the Ladies PGA was formed and replaced the kind of rough-shod organization that they had at that time frame. And the first Women's Open was held in 1946, and this was won by Patty Berg. The 1960s brought with it something special in the guise of Arnold Palmer, Jack Nicklaus, and Gary Player. They dominated the game into the 1970s, winning nearly every major event around the world. And these are names that most people can recognize because they truly helped form a lot of the core of today's golf world. In 1961, the PGA withdrew its whites-only rule from its constitution, and Charlie Stifford became the first black golfer to contest a PGA event, and Lee Elder the first to contest the Masters in 1975. So in conclusion, I started out today speaking of men hitting a feather-filled leather ball with wooden sticks in a small corner of the world for sport. Now I leave having discussed a worldwide sport played by men, women, and children of different cultures and backgrounds. For those that enjoy playing golf or watching others play, it is truly a sport of challenge and emotion that has endured decades of progression and remained true to its traditions.